Okay. Well, hello and welcome back to Like Literarily. I am Momo.
I'm Alicia.
And I'm Riley.
Like
Literally. Happy September, ladies. This episode is about Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, TJR, one of our favorite authors here on the pod. Alexis, do you want to start us out with the summary?
Epic novel set against the backdrop of the 1980s space shuttle program and the extraordinary lengths we go to live and love beyond our limits. In the summer of 1980, astrophysics professor Joan Goodwin begins training to be an astronaut at Houston's Johnson Space Center alongside an exceptional group of fellow candidates, Top Gun pilots Hank Redman and John Griffin, mission specialist Lydia Danes, warm-hearted Donna Fitzgerald, and Vanessa Ford, the magnetic and mysterious aeronautical engineer. As the new astronauts prepare for their first flights, Joan finds a passion and a love she never imagined and begins to question everything she believes about her place in the observable universe. Then, in December of 1984, on mission STS-LR9, everything changes in an instant. What are your guys' general thoughts? Kick us off.
Well, I will just like to say that this one is not going to be spoiler free. We have lots of thoughts and opinions, especially about the ending. So, overall, my general thoughts. I feel like this book really had you jump headfirst into the story. You kind of start at the climax and then go back and forth between the timelines, similar to like Every Summer After. I will say, jumping in like that, especially with the audiobook, it did make it a little hard to keep up with the characters at first, like who was who, just because, I mean, overall the voices aren't all that different. Um, what did you guys think of the novel structure, cutting back and forth between the disaster in 1984 and Joan's path to arrive there? Personally, I enjoyed it. It made me a little more engaged and invested from the start. Also, PSA, I have been sick, so if I sound stuffy, I am. Anyway, what are y'all's thoughts?
No, I want to circle back a little bit on the audiobook and the time jumps. That's something I have really struggled with. Whenever I've listened to an audiobook that does not take place in like the timeline in the correct order, I'm just constantly lost and don't know what's happening anymore because they say the date real quick at the chapter change and I don't even register it. And then I'm suddenly like, wait, are we in the right timeline right now?
No,
Um,
I
I can
totally
definitely see where that's
agree.
hard.
Yeah, like currently I'm reading or listening to all the things or whatever talked to you about this earlier, but it's a book and I'm really struggling with different time jumps because it also has different character perspectives and there aren't multiple like narrators and it's really hard to keep up with who am I listening to right now. This one wasn't as bad, but it wasn't great either. Anyway, sorry to cut you off, Alicia.
No,
Just
no.
concur with what you're saying.
You're good. I think as far as like so yeah, I read it. I didn't listen to the audiobook on this one, so I was less confused. I registered the dates written on the chapters way better when it's in print. And I usually like some jumping around in the timelines of my stories to like provide some more context, but like you said, there's all this tension with the current timeline. And I felt like there was no tension in the past timeline. And so, I mean, like Riley already said, there's going to be spoilers. And like I felt like the big tension was in the present tense. Like, oh no, are our two main characters together? Because like this was definitely like a self-discovery timeline for Joanne. And is it Joanne or Joan?
It's
Joan.
Joan.
It's Joan. I'm pretty sure I read it as Joanne the entire time I read the book. So sorry to our listeners that you're gonna hear me probably say that a couple times. But I just I felt like I wasn't as intrigued by the past. Like I liked just being there, exploring that with all the characters and their little journey of becoming astronauts. But like I didn't feel invested into that plot line as much and like just couldn't believe that it took half the book for Joan to realize she was queer.
Yeah, I So I have a couple things to add on to both of your guys' statements. So I really did enjoy the back and forth on the timeline. I feel like it's the one thing that kept me super invested. Especially with, I feel like it started a little slow. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe it was Riley said that we kind of jumped right in, but I kind of actually felt like it started a little slow. Um, but because of the back and forth, I felt inclined to like keep reading to find out what happened. Um, I will say I think I was reading it on my Kindle because I was traveling. Actually, no. I think I was out of the country with the military. So I had my Kindle, so it was easier. But I remember having to kind of go back and forth when I got home and had my actual hard copy that I didn't bring with me to go back and connect some of the dots after I finished it because I was like, wait, what? Because even on the Kindle, you can't just flip back and forth, kind of like an audiobook. So it was a little difficult to keep up with if you seriously like did not have the hard copy in front of you. Um, and then to add to Alicia's point, I will say that Joan finding out that she was queer was not really a big surprise to me about halfway through the book. I feel like I started to kind of pick up the hints, but I feel like as soon as we had maybe a few interactions with Vanessa, like I already knew that she was gay. Like it just was like the vibe, my gaydar was going off. I was like, yeah, that might come up, but I was like, are we gonna go like a more romancy portion, or is this gonna be like a friendship kind of love story kind of thing, like them bringing out their authentic selves from each other. And then obviously, we know what twist that it ended up taking. Overall, I did like the scientific competition, military crossover kind of vibe, academia, with, all these different people with different skill levels and academic backgrounds to form a team. I thought that was really cool. It was definitely a change of pace from most of what we've read, so I
Yeah, I
liked it.
guess I guess related to that, a lot of TJR's books have been focused on like some kind of celebrity romance or like these high profile relationships. And so, Alexis, if you want to keep kind of continuing on that line of thought, but what did you think about her switching up this world? It sounds like you liked the space of how diverse the characters were, but being in this more scientific setting.
So, yeah, I mean, I really actually liked the change of pace from the celebrity romance tabloid type of vibe that TJR's kind of been on the last few books that she's written. I know some of her earlier ones, like One True Loves and all that kind of stuff, are your pretty much straight up normal romance type of vibe. As a not huge science person, I was a comm major. The sciencey portion of this didn't feel too clunky, but also I probably just didn't hover on it too long because I was like, "Oh, that sounds smart," and then I just moved about my day. um, I think you, Alicia, have a point that you're going to bring up later on with kind of like how the men were on the team. Like it just didn't feel, they felt too welcoming in comparison to reality when even nowadays in 2025 not all men are even super welcoming of women in like male dominated areas, but I'll let you expand on that. um I do feel like as far as the characters, I really did like how diverse everybody was. Everybody had different backgrounds as far as how they were raised, their level of education, military versus non-military, public versus private school, like just different kind of stuff like that. And just kind of seeing like how they all played on their strengths and weaknesses. And I really liked Joan and her development from going from a very average plain Jane kind of awkward but super smart type to definitely gaining the ability to understand like, hey, yeah, going to space was cool, but I know where I belong. I know my strengths. I know where I'm good at. I know that I can play a major piece and a major role for the success of the overall team and NASA and all that kind of stuff if I'm like here versus here. So I thought that that was really cool because I think that's a lesson that we all have to learn, is that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we all have a part to play in the machine, I guess. um and then, yeah, I think the one thing I didn't necessarily love was the ending being focused on the love story versus the actual problem that we've been going back and forth like the whole time throughout the book, which was the launch and kind of like how something went wrong with it. But we'll touch on that too, so I won't stay on that too long.
Yeah, just to
What about
clarify,
you?
just to clarify what the big conflict is, like the two timelines, what basically happens, there's a issue on the space shuttle, whatever it is. It's been like a month since I read this, so it's been a second. But basically there's a issue on the space shuttle, not the space shuttle, the wherever they are, this and space station. There we go. And basically everybody dies except for Vanessa and one other person that's on there. And the whole like objective is to see if they could save Vanessa and that one person to bring him back to Earth in a very condensed timeline. So anyway, as much as I enjoyed this book, I do think the science aspect was like very clunky. It almost felt like a naive approach to the subject. Joan felt childlike in her amazement for astronomy. It's not like she didn't seem like an actual scientist. I appreciate TJR's ability to write strong women in male-dominated fields, don't get me wrong, but this one didn't land the same for me. As much as I enjoyed the love story, I wish it was like a secondary plot and becoming an astronaut was actually the main plot. I would have preferred it follow more of a Carrie Soto storyline where the focus was on her career. Granted, the subtitle is a love story, like it's atmosphere underneath a love story, so I guess I shouldn't criticize it that much. Because I mean, she put it out on the title, but I also think it just would have been better if it wasn't a love story. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what do you have to say about that, Alicia?
Well, first, I guess I'll circle a little bit to the scientific and Joan as a character. Um, which I had a very similar note that I had taken down when I was reading as to what Riley was just saying, where I put Joanne is bordering between likable and insufferable, which is exactly what you want written down about your main character of your love story by somebody who is reading it. And it
100%.
was a
That's
really
ideal, right?
right. It was a rough little juxtaposition for me that I was really struggling with. Like all of this wonder that she had towards her field and bringing into academia felt a little naive to me. I mean, I I'm in academia. like I'm in that space. And yes, there are people who are very passionate about what they do. And it like percolates to like every component of their life, and it's what they think about day in and day out. But like this like complete wonder at the thing, it didn't feel inquisitive to me as much as it felt like she was just like lost in it in like a wow type of way. Which I just struggled with a little bit. It felt a little fluffy. Um
It
so
almost made it feel like she wasn't actually educated in the subject because she found it so like mesmerizing. Like if you're
that's a
like a
good word.
yeah, because she felt so mesmerized by it, it was almost like she didn't like she's supposed to be a scientist, she's supposed to be an expert in this. It shouldn't be that mesmerizing. She should kind of like understand it.
Hmm.
Is it
And
maybe just because she was doing it from such a different perspective? Like she went from it being more in theory to her actually going into like the practical exercise and like really doing it.
I don't know because I mean, I never even felt like she made it to like the in practice. Like, yeah, it still felt like she was just like wowed by the concepts. I like it felt like there should have been a lot more questioning there. I mean, that's kind of the point of academia is like keep asking what, why, or how, and it was just constantly just like Riley was saying, just like mesmerized by this space. And I don't know if it was the scientific aspect of the approach to this book or if it was Joan as like a character. But like I
That's
felt like
what
we didn't know anything about her. Like I didn't feel like I was getting anything substantial for a very long time. I had another note on like page 65 out of 450, which I realized isn't even a quarter of the way in the book. But I was just like, I don't know anything about her except for this childlike wonder with space. And so it just like felt like it needed more complexity with
I think
if that was going to be
maybe
the focus.
I think maybe for me it was like, and maybe I was reading into this a complete opposite direction because again, not a science person, so I didn't maybe like take it so seriously. But I think from my end, I looked at it as like she was kind of mesmerized by just maybe like the how am I trying to say it? Like maybe just the lack of opportunity up until this point and just mesmerized by the fact that she even got the opportunity to be in academia, to even get the opportunity to do this. We obviously know that she was extremely run down by her responsibilities to like take care of her sister and take care of the niece and like all other kind of stuff. And then maybe almost like I kind of felt like she was smart, but you know, what were her mentorship and maybe like research capabilities, you know, in the 1980s in comparison to now. Um, and then also I think my brain was kind of like almost kind of like imposter syndrome. Like she just was taking in the fact that she even had the opportunity to be there, even if she didn't end up being successful, I guess. Maybe that's just how I took it, but that also came from, like you said, like that childlike wonder was a really good way to put it. But she also was somebody that it was pretty evident from the beginning was not very experienced in a lot of things like dating, life. Like most of her life was taking care of her sister and the niece and working. Riley, what do you think?
You're muted.
Oh, thank you. It also felt just like anticlimactic that she ended up going up to space. She ended up going up before pretty much all of her other friends, and then she hated it.
Yeah.
Like, what?
I don't know. That
You
one
have
felt a little realistic.
No, I
no,
was gonna say the same
ironically,
thing. Like that's
that
so
did
real. Like I've been looking for this my whole life, and then like you're like, shit, I don't like this.
yeah. But I mean, ironically, that was probably the most real part of the book, but it was still just like you've had all this mesmerization and wonder and being all excited about this is what you worked towards your whole life, and then you hate it. I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna do something totally different. Like it was just like, girl, I don't know. It was just
Like that
like you.
though. I like that though, because I feel like as somebody who doesn't really know what her like niche is, like Joan, it was kind of cool to see that, like, yeah, she had all this wonder up to this point, and then she got there and was like, that was cool, but I'm not really that good at that, and I don't like that. And it kind of shows you can still do what you love in a different capacity. I mean, maybe that's how I took, but that's also because my life is wild, so.
I don't know, man. I like understood it, but I was also just like, I don't know. It was also like such a short part of the book.
It didn't, yeah.
It,
The climax was definitely not her making it to space. It was like,
no,
yep, she going. And it was like, yeah, 20 pages between her finding out and her being.
I don't like this. And then that was it. That was the end. Like what, girl? I don't know. It just didn't. She didn't feel like a fully fleshed out character overall.
Yeah, I think that was something I was definitely struggling with throughout the book. And I feel like that was mostly true for most the characters to me. Like I didn't feel like I was closely connected really with anybody in their cohort while we were going through. I think Vanessa was the most intriguing for sure, from the beginning. But even coming back to Alexis, your comment on like Joan being inexperienced with dating, like she I feel like it was I don't know, that same like childlike like wonder from that we were seeing in her workplace was also like taking on a role in her relationship. It made a lot more sense with that inexperience in that space versus the academic space. And so like I felt there was times where it was making sense that that was in her personality and other times where I was just like this doesn't, why is this percolating so many different aspects of her life? But
I
like
wonder.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
there's like a quote she has that I wrote down like halfway through where she's talking to Vanessa, um, and she just tells her like, I know I'm mortal, but like I'm not sure if you're God. And it's just like that seems to be her approach for everything. It's just like I'm small. Everything else is just like big. I just I don't know. It wasn't resonating with me.
That was a perfect segue to my comment. She definitely, I wonder if it was intentional with the way that she was written because I feel like Joan as a character was just not very confident. And so I wonder if a lot of like the conflicting things that we see, or just that very, like I said, like plain Jane kind of average imposter syndrome kind of vibe. Like I think it was hard to get to know Joan more as a character, because I feel like we really didn't get to even really see Joan discover who the deeper parts of Joan were until the end. So I wish that we got a little bit more of that part. Like the climax came earlier and then we got more of like post character development moment Joan, but I don't know. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't. I mean, TJR is a pretty good writer, so maybe it was. Who knows?
I don't know. My issue with that is that it's 1980s and she's one of the first female astronauts. I'm sorry, but a meek person is not going to be an astronaut going up to space in 1980. That's not going to happen. As a woman, absolutely the fuck not. Respectfully.
But
Yeah,
that's
just
why she
seemed
didn't like it. She was like, I want to stay down here.
she wouldn't have gotten an opportunity in the first place if she wasn't more confident than the other people.
right.
It
I
just
do
didn't.
agree. The timeline of this book did not make sense to me. Or like the time, like it taking place in 1980 clearly had to happen if we wanted to talk about the first women astronauts going up. But like you could not convince me that workplace was the workplace in the 1980s that these women were experiencing, that these gay women were experiencing. I that was completely unbelievable to me. I did struggle with that the entire book. I was like, this isn't how the men would be acting. I don't think, Riley, like you were just saying, like the women that are going to be in these spaces are going to be women who realize they have to push back on the institution. It, yeah, I really struggled with that the entire time.
Yeah, the whole like men looking out for them thing was definitely a little confusing for me, because that was definitely probably not the space. Not to say that there weren't allies at all, but you're telling me majority of them were looking out for them. Like, no, as we all know, even to this day, women are still getting pushed out by the men in these male dominated spaces. So that was a little confusing for me, but I just kind of was like, I guess this is a romance book, so I guess I'll take it for what it is.
So
All
thinking
right.
that this is a romance book, the ending, thoughts?
Ugh.
Uh,
Riley, you go first and I'll follow you.
okay. So I know a lot of people really like this book, and they all saw a lot of people had a lot of feelings about the ending, and but my controversial opinion about the ending, I hated it. I hated the ending. I'm sorry, but Vanessa should have died. She should have died. The whole thing should have blown up, and she should have died. I would have been a much stronger ending. I would have been much more emotionally invested in this whole book if it ended with the transmission cut out. They didn't make it. Period. End of book. I would have sobbed. Instead, I was like, there's no fucking way she would have lived. She wouldn't have lived. There's no way. Too many things went wrong in the
Mm-hmm.
space station for them to have lived. No way. There's no way. It was just incredibly unreal. After a lot of things leading up to that point that were also unreal. And don't get me wrong, I was really invested in this book the whole time I was listening to it. And then at that point, I got hypercritical because I was so annoyed because it didn't make sense. I really enjoyed the book up until then, and then I was like pissed off and got hypercritical. I don't know. That is my opinion on this. So it's going to sound like I'm really ragging on this book, but it's because I think she had the wrong ending. I don't know. What do you think, Alicia?
I, it was it was what I was expecting, but not what I was hoping for. Not to be like I was hoping for death and explosions, but like it would have been stronger. I was still crying at the end regardless, and I need to reevaluate my star system, which we can talk about in our ratings. But like, man, we really could have hit a tearjerker if things would have just went. But Riley, like you said, we see the subtitle of this book. It says a love story right there on the front of the novel. And there's a very strong group of people that say it's not a love story, it's not a romance if you don't have that happily ever after. And so that's where I knew what was going to happen, because I was like, we're not going to get that HEA without her making it back down. But man, that is not the better story here.
No, it's not.
Alexis.
So yeah, I stand by the like literary gals, and I stand by a point. The ending being so hyper focused on a love story confused me because the entire book literally felt like passion turned career, self-love, kind of like romance love story vibes. And I was like, okay, we seen Jane kind of like coming into who she is. She's gaining a little bit more confidence. We see her, especially as things start to go wrong on the launch in December of 84, really kind of like step into her role that she fought for and said that she wanted instead of going into space. And then I also was like, okay, more on the self-love part. Like, she learned that she was gay, and then like, that whole like self-discovery journey. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I got to the ending and I went, this girl didn't die? I was so confused. I was like, what? I just feel like you guys said I would have probably cried way harder. It would have been a huge shock factor that I feel like really would have been talked about in all capacities across the book community, really gaining probably like a lot of traction for this book. And I just feel like it would have impacted Joan in so many ways if Vanessa had actually died. And it might be kind of morbid to think about it like that. Like, not the character development because her girlfriend died, but
But like, can we have a coming of age in your late 30s book?
yeah, but no, that's what I'm saying. Like the whole time in this book, Joan emphasizes a lot about how she lived her entire life to stay close to her niece, to support her sister, um, to support the parents and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like when she joined this program, it was the one thing she did for herself. She moved away. We know the sister sucked ass the whole time. And then then she ends up getting custody of the niece because again, the mom sucked and everything else. And so I just feel like there were so many things that she had so many developmental moments on. And as morbid as it sounds, and as much as I don't want anybody to die, I feel like if the entire team died, it really would have shown her growth in her role if like an epilogue would have been her still doing it 10 years later and she's like never let that happen again, like type of thing. And so yeah, I the ending.
And so, I mean, sounds like we all had strong opinions on the ending, but how did that end up influencing our overall ratings of the book? Alexis, do you want to go first?
I still kept it at 5. I mean, despite like the disappointing ending, it still wasn't a bad book. It was, Taylor Jenkins Reid, she's a solid author across the board all the time. I mean, were there some things I would change? Sure, but overall, I closed the book, really had a lot of thoughts. I think because me and Riley finished it first, we texted and chatted about it a little bit, especially about the sister. Ugh. Um,
She's the worst.
she was the absolute worst. But yeah, I mean, I kept it a 5. What about you guys?
I gave it a 5 because it's the same reason I gave a 5 to like the last 3 books we've read, where I'm like, well, I cried at the end, so it's gotta have a 5 because like it got an emotional response. But I really think I need to reevaluate this default to 5 stars if there's crying involved because it feels like it's been really inconsistent with how I talk about the books in the episode. So I need to do some self-reflection on my future ratings. Riley.
The ending did affect how I rated this book. Putting that out there right now. If she died, it would have been a 5-star read. Dead ass. Like that's just how it would have been. I wouldn't have been so hypercritical. I would have been praising it and been like, there's some issues, but I really, really liked it. No, this ending got me so angry and made me so hypercritical of the entire book that I lowered it down to a 4. Not even a 4.5. A whole 4. It lost a whole
She took a
star from
whole
me.
star.
A whole star. Made me so angry. I like closed this book and I always give Mike a book report after I finish a book and was like, Michael, this is BS. I am so angry. And then told him the entire like synopsis, right? And he was like, that made me angry. And I didn't even read the dang thing. I had a lot of passion about this. But yeah, it lost a whole star for me. I think this is my lowest ranked TJR book.
I mean,
I
it's
did still
valid
really
though.
like it. I still really liked it until the end. Made me
Yeah.
so angry. I'm sorry, guys. It really affected the whole way I like look back at this book.
Hey, that's okay.
It's honestly super valid. Like I really did get to the end and was like, "What?" Because me and you chatted about it. Like when I texted you, we were both like, "What the hell?"
This is BS, man.
It
So angry.
was. She really
She's
could have had a shock factor.
at the end of the book. She took the whole book away from me.
So now that we know, as long as you're in love, you're gonna make your way back from space. Would you?
Apparently, that's the lesson.
No, just kidding. But seriously, would if you can get on that SpaceX flight with Katy Perry and go up to space, would you do it?
No.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I will stay firmly planted on Earth. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
I thank God every day I'm not in the Navy, so I'm not in the boat in the middle of the ocean. I like having my 2 feet on the ground.
Right.
The
Right.
claustrophobicness, I think. I've never been prone to being claustrophobic, but I don't think you can put me up in a shuttle in the middle of space and not have me freak out.
Joan getting severe motion sickness. Girl, me too. I'm out. That would take me out. That little motion sickness patch ain't gonna do nothing for me with no gravity. So
No, take the
I'm
goggles
good.
up.
I'm bad enough when we do rollover training in the Army. No.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I'm good. No astronauts here at like literally.
No. Also, this is not a DO. This does not reflect the thoughts of the DOD. Anyway.
DOW asterisk.
Yeah.
Oh, you right.
I think
We're
it's
not
been
going to talk
updated in the
about
last
that.
24 hours.
We're not going to talk about it. All right. Alicia,
Catch us
do you
next
want to?
month. We're going to talk about the very secret society of irregular witches. Woo.
Spooky season.
We're ready. We love some good
Spooky
cozy
season.
fall reads here at Like Literarily.
We do.
All right. We'll catch you all
Alrighty.
next
Right.
time.
Bye.